Hey, True Believers, Chris Mack coming at you with X-Force Annual #1. And this was back in May of 1992. And these type of annuals, what they would do from what I remember is it would usually come around out during the summertime. So you get 64 pages. So you would get a thicker book. You would get like a main story and a couple of backstories. And I will say that for an annual that doesn't really correlate to anything in terms of main continuity, they did not need to try as hard as they did with this story because it kicked ass. There's maybe 3 things that I can remember off the top of my head that I did not like about these books, and it's like trivial stuff. So like, for example, I don't know if looking at it right here, if you can tell what's driving me nuts, but I'll show you anyway. Look at Shatterstar's eyes. Someone just kind of forgot to line them up correctly. So here he looks like, what's his name? I don't remember his name, but hey, you guys from the Goonies. So that's probably the only thing that irks me, just because his eyes drop down and I'm just like, it's not symmetrical, so it's screwing with me in that regard. But on that beautiful cover, action lines, you kind of get an idea of what this story is going to entail in terms of seeing like the X-Force and then Shatterstar here in the forefront. So let's go ahead and dive into this story. It is absolutely phenomenal. Before we go any further, there are, like I said, 3 stories I believe in here. We're only going to go over the main story, and that's kind of to bring sort of what the second thing that bothers me is I do not like the second story, The Crush. It's not bad. It's the characters that drive me nuts. It's, what are the names? Artie and the 2 kid Morlocks. I've never liked them, whether they've been part of the Morlocks or when they were part of X Factor. I just never liked them. They bug. So the one we're going over is The Mirror Liars, Shattershot Part 4. Writers Fabian Nicieza, penciler Greg Capullo, inks Harry Candelario, letterer Chris Ianopoulos, and colors was Mike Thomas. So we got big names on this book already. And then the editor was Bob Harris, and the editor-in-chief was Tom DeFalco. The story starts on, it's not Murder World, Mojo World, I guess you call it. But this is allegedly 10 years in the future. And you see the Mojo characters fighting against what's called the Fang Guards. And you see them go, press the attack, onward, onward. If we win, we live. And so you're thinking, wait a minute. Isn't the people that are supposed to be in the arena supposed to be like humans or mutants, etc., so forth? Because for those of you that have never really read Mojo, their universe relies on ratings. So everything that they really talk about, like in terms of the colloquialism, I guess is the best word to say, is there are TV-related words. So for example, when this fight ends, which I don't want to give away, so let me get past the main part of this, because again, I don't want to give away a lot of it. But here it says, the crowd roars, the faint troops soak in their adulation. Another sound, I'm all too tired of it. The sound of hypocritical victory. And now, the worst sound of all. Cancellation, cancellation, cancellation. So in this world, this is how they say death. So this is essentially Mojo's TV programming was gladiator arenas of ancient Rome. And everyone here screams for cancellation, and all the talks they talk about are, TV-related themes. Sorry, I kind of had a brain fart there for a second. But anyway, going back to the dialogue, it says, all heads turn towards the ruling box, where the network personnel sit, where the master programmer sits, waiting tensely for the decision. And here, you find out that the master programmer is Shatterstar, waiting for my decision. My name is Shatterstar. I've been the master program on what was once called Mojo World for 10 years. It is a title a mantle I'm all too weary of bearing. It's a tenet I've lived my entire life under. But the people want what the people want. But does that necessarily mean it's right? And so, essentially what happened is X-Force went to Mojo World, took down Mojo 1 and 2, they're like up to Mojo the 5th or whatever, placed Shatterstar in charge of Mojo World, and he's kind of become complacent. He says it's the way of the arena games. It has been the way before time. Because for those of you that remember, Shatterstar was a warrior of the pits, essentially a slave, and came to our time to have the X-Men help him. He goes, the old ways are preserved only now. They are our ways, not those of the spineless ones, which are the Mojo race. Their past is our present. Their sins are our salvation. Their crimes are our laws. Is this how it was meant to be? Is this all it was meant to be? Is this all I was meant to be? And I love how he's thinking about this. They pull, essentially like in film, they pull the camera out to show the loneliness of these decisions that weigh on him, that, you know, even though the bipeds, as they're called, are now in charge of Mojo World, nothing's changed. Now, again, as I said at the beginning of this review, this was a summer annual book. They did not have to get this in depth or this level of writing. Now, before we go any further in this book, I do want to point out something, because I just kind of want to clarify. I'm not sure if people understand that when I talk about these older books and how poignant the writing is, you know, I'll say a lot of these newer books where they'll go, oh my God, LOL, so random in MySpace and Ponies, and I say that a lot. So what I wanted to do is I kind of wanted to show a juxtaposition here, if you guys are willing to chill with me here for a second. So I got this free. This was a digital download from Marvel's website. This was the 2018 Shatterstar comic series. I don't know how many issues it ran. It wasn't that many. But you're hoping from the cover you see here that you're going to get, you know, this type of character. But what happens is you open the book and you see him standing over the pits, and he's thinking back to when he was in the arena. He goes, this is Shatterstar, aka Gavidra 7, a genetically engineered humanoid from the alternate dimension called Mojo World, 100 years hence. Enhanced for maximum viability in the gladiatorial arena. Shatterstar became a fierce warrior, drawing blood to appease the audiences who demanded new and inventive sacrifices in exchange for the... that's too small for me to read. Anyway, essentially it goes back to his world. But what happens here is then it shows him in the modern world, and he goes, now he goes by Ben Gavidra, landlord. Whoop-de-fucking-do. You're thinking, oh, we're going to start getting maybe some backstory, kind of like what we're doing with the book that we're currently going over. Oh, I'm a landlord, and it makes me sound powerful. And then, again, here's where it gets annoying. He goes, I believe we discussed the rules about sidewalks outside the building and bodily waste. And we get a talking dog. We did, and I explained that I want to buy your imperialist laws. And they say that this is supposed to be an apartment thing for alternate dimension beings where they can kind of come and stay housed or whatever. And this is like an outcast. He was supposed to be some sort of ruler or whatever. And then we get this. He grabs a dog and he goes, come here, little cootsy pootsykin. Aw, him's so cute. Wait till the Kennel Club sees you. We're going to win best of show. Oh, yes, we are. And the guy goes, Did you just literally emasculate me in front of Mitzi Mauskowitz, the most eligible schnauzer in Queens? I did, yes. And I'll do it again unless you curry yourself in the future. Fine. But don't surprise if my rent is a little late. Owner class elitist. So think about the dialogue that we just went over here, and then the poignance of this book. Can you just not feel like the lack of quality in this newer book? How we're wanting to see Shatterstar, a man who's torn now. He's the ruler of Mojo World. And he's torn and conflicted that nothing has changed, that now, even though the bipeds are free, it's the spineless ones that are slaves used for the pits. And that's why he said, is this how it was meant to be? Is this all it was meant to be? Is this all I was meant to be? And then we get, oh, come here, Kutsi Pukitson. Do you see what I mean in terms of quality and how they change characters where it does not feel like the character that we know? So just kind of keep that in mind as we move through this book. Now there's this character named Arise, and he's worked with X-Force before. He comes back to, I guess at this point you would call it the present, which it shows that it's the future. The Xavier Institute has become more militaristic. And what I like is we come to find out that the leader at this point is Sam Gerthy. And just look at the more matureness in his face, the lines from being under the tutelage of Cable. You can see that, Sam was always the bright-eyed, bushy-tailed one from the early New Mutants days, and how being trained by Cable kind of hardens him, and how he goes to attack these spineless ones because, at this point they only know Mojo as a threat. They don't understand that Arise has come here for their help. And in this future, I like the team that they put together. So, it's Sam leading, and then we have this girl named, Francine Powers. And if you guys remember, was it Power Pack? That was kind of back in the 80s. They were a younger kid superhero team. So I like to see that at least one of them moved up the ranks and became part of X-Force. In this type of future, it logically makes sense. And then, of course, I like that Ileana Rasputin comes back, Magic, but at this point they're calling her Dark Child, which was what she was called when she was first sent into Limbo and was under the tutelage of the alternate timeline Witch Storm, or whatever it was. Now, when I was talking about things that bug me, we went over the cover, how I don't like the Artie and the Morlock kids because I just always found them obnoxious. Here's the third thing that bugs me is I love the design that they got for Ileana here, but that face, it just looks so wrong the way it's just like, and it looks more like a type of face that you could like pull off and swap. It just looks like it's getting ready to fall off her head. It just looks very flat. But at first I was like, oh God, when I first read this, I hope that's not the face design for the whole thing. But then you come to the next panel and you're like, okay, good, that was just a one-off because she starts to look better. Now, again, as I said at the beginning of this review, they didn't need to try this hard, but look at the quality of the art here. The intricacy of her slashing into the Mojo's machines that carry them because they're so damn fat. And then, of course, I always love any time that Siren is part of the team. And for those of you that don't know, Teresa Cassie, she is the daughter of Banshee. And again, they didn't need to try as hard as they did in terms of storytelling, the artwork. They could have just been like, oh, this is just a summer book. No one's going to give a shit about it. But they did. And then we go back to this more, like this artwork, it's not, oh, my phone just went to sleep. Sorry, guys, hold on. Downfall of digital comics. The artwork's not bad, but just look at how generic it looks to say Warlock here, which is the mixture in this timeline of Doug Ramsey and Cypher. Or Warlock and Doug Ramsey. I'm getting code names. But here, this was before digital art. They had to try. Now here, this is 2018, 2019, where digital art is full on display, and it just looks so stock and boring. And half of the book here, again, I know I'm getting off track here, but we're already halfway through this book here, and it's been talk and talking, with some talking on top of talking, for your talking. And then, oh look, pop culture reference, Fantastic Four. Galactus, I just read about it. Galactus, a 30-foot giant in a purple helmet who trained to eat Manhattan. A purple helmet. What the chicken McFun? Boring. Let's get that out of there. Going back. Here, I love that, and again, look at how they do the dialogue here. He goes, negative, designated Banshee deceased, August 24th. What is that, 2008 or something like that. Action designate Siren, offspring of designate Banshee. And you would be doublet life form, designate Cyberlock. Composition of unit organic material, designate Douglas Ramsey. Biomechanical material, designate Warlock. They didn't need to make this so damn good, and I'm glad that they did, because these types of books are the type that are going to stand the test of time. With good storytelling, characters that you love. You see Roberto here. He's like from the business end of a plasma launcher, because they're saying we come in peace. Still, it's just so much scrap metal in the hands of Sunspot. And then we see Arise, and he goes, his name's Arise, he's a friend, or at least he used to be. And I hope, Sam Griffey, after all these years, that I still am. So he convinces the new X-Force team, which I like the designs. Again, look at how worn and tired Sam is. Same with Roberto. Ileana being more, she's aged, she's matured. Same with Siren, Francine Powers. It just adds this new layer, and it kind of gives you an idea of different stuff that you can do with the mythos going down the road for different writers that no one added. And again, anybody that's never read an X-Force book, he gives the background of Mojo, of how Longshot came back into the past, forgot who he was, but he wanted the X-Men to help him overthrow the Mojoverse. And how Arise tried to help the spineless ones, but in turn turn them insane. That's why all the Mojos that ruled were crazy, was because of something he did. And then we get back in the 90s when Longshot brings in the new X-Men from the, I guess that was the early Jim Lee, Fabian Nicieza era. And so Schmecky, I think it's Schmeckles, and I can't remember the other one's name, but they find a way that they're saying you need to take down your teammate, Shatterstar. And they're surprised that it's Shatterstar that's still holding this dictatorship in this universe. So then we jump over to this Mojo world. And I just love that, Sam's trying to stay cool and collected. He's like, stay frosty. It's just a far cry from how him and Danny initially ran the New Mutants. And what makes it great is when Shatterstar sees his old team, it wakes him up. And he goes, no more oppression, no more deceit. And at this point, you find out who the deceivers were. And it finally awakens something in Shatterstar to take down this regime of continuing violence. He goes, I've not been in a fray for Zod knows how long. Let us make this one for the two worlds to remember. And think about that dialogue and how he's saying that. So like, who's a cutesy snooky-poos? Ugh, yuck. And then we get action. Gorgeous anatomy of how Shatterstar just goes through all these people that deceived him. And how at the end of it all, he sits there. And he goes, I no longer will listen to the old ways. He says, no longer will we tell you what you want. No longer will you tell us what to do. The time has come for a new way, where the swords of war are replaced by the outstretched hands of love. And then the way that it ends, I love that, it seems like everything's nice and wrapped up. And there's a page I want to particularly show you, and it's hiding from me. But then we get a little nod at the end that ties everything in a neat bow. Like if they would have made this canon, it would have been great to see how X-Force moved into the future and kind of left X-Men and X-Factor in the past, and just kind of see how this future progressed. I would love to see more of this. It was such a great story, but then again, there's times, just like with the Age of Apocalypse, where they keep making stories based off it and it gets more watered down. So I'm thankful to have the story that I do. Now, one last thing that I do want to show you guys. So this was a 64-page comic. There's 2 other stories. I'm not going to give those away because I want you to read them. But again, as I said, this was a summer book. Let me find what I want to show you real quick. At the end, they would give you these pinup pages. And again, they did not need, they could have made this a quick buck. But we get a beautiful piece by Adam Kubert. Same by Tom Rainey. They could have said, oh, this is a summer thing, we'll just half-ass it. No, they gave it their all. They gave us beautiful anatomy of the time that just perfectly depicts each character from X-Force. So overall, I think about the 64 pages, $19.92, $2.25. Nowadays, you get a book like this, and half of it would be like talking or jokes that we just saw in that other Shattershot comic, and they would charge you easily $6 to $10 for a book like this. This is quality at its best, man. I know people are saying, oh, get over it, it was the 90s. Yeah, but guess what? All these characters that you love now, where do you think they came from? X-Men and whatnot, yeah, they came earlier, 1963, and then revitalized 1975. And then, the 90s, they brought in Nikezia, Liefeld, and we got these new characters. They revitalized Cannonball, Ileana, Sunspot, Danny, even though I didn't like how she was a villain there for a while. But again, the quality of this book, guys, absolutely phenomenal. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please, first and foremost, support your local comic shop and pick up a copy if you've enjoyed this review. We really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little X bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with you and hearing your feedback down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, I'm sorry this review went a little bit long, but there's a lot that I wanted to cover, and I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.